All right, then. Today at Fico Fellas is the 2nd of July. We have a super duper special guest, my friend since a long time, a very long time, 1986. We have a guy from America, from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, next to Miami. Super great guitar player that I learned a lot of stuff. Today we speak in English because
his Italian is excellent.
Better. And we have at Fico Fellas today, with Consi and Filippo and Nico. We have Mr. Randy Bernsen.
Welcome.
Randy, welcome.
Ciao, Filippo. Ciao, ragazzi. So nice to be back here in Italy. For how many years now? 31?
I guess from 1986.
86, yeah.
Yeah.
So I love Mi Piace Italy, the lifestyle, the friends, the family, the beach, the music, the everything is a wonderful way to live. I'm glad you guys let me back every year because my Italian sucks, but he still loves me, right?
Randy, what do you think about this place, Fico Fellas, in Riccione?
Unbelievable.
Nice,
Unbelievable.
huh?
You know, I've been coming to these kind of places for 30 years.
Yeah, more.
And this is just perfect. You know, the vibe, the colors, you know, as an artist and stuff, you are always too red, too blue, too big, too small, too loud, too small. It just looks perfect to me.
That's a beautiful place, and I agree with you. And that's the only place in Riccione right now is doing live music, DJ set, very concentrated to the all arts and music, which is very beautiful. I mean, Randy came here for the first time in 1986 because of Onorino Tiburzi.
Onorino Tiburzi, great bassist.
Yeah, found you around the web or whatever because you were playing with Jaco Pastorius, right?
Jaco Pastorius, the one and only, yeah.
Exactly. But we're gonna, go back a little bit. Who is Randy? I mean, where you were born, what's your history?
Well, USA, Massachusetts, up north.
Wow.
Where it's nice and cold. And then my stepfather was an airline pilot. He said, let's move down to Miami. Not a bad idea, where it's nice and warm every day like this. It's very similar to Riccione and Cattolica and places like this, very nice. And so we went down there. I have my twin brother, two other brothers, came to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, near Miami, and went to high school, started playing music when I was 12, and kept gigging, getting bands in high school, and developed my compositional skills. I started writing when I was 16 years old. In fact, the song that I want to play later for you, Old Hats, I wrote when I was actually 16 years old. That eventually became into a big band song, and I recorded that with Jaco Pastorius and some other very famous jazz people. So everything one foot in front of another, more gigs, local gigs. Now the gigs are starting to get out of town. I'm getting to know more people. I met some wonderful people in London, which is where I'm living now for a year, and they believed in me and said, hey, why don't you do your project you've always wanted to do? Well, what do you want to do? I said, well, if I could really do it, I'd want to record with the best, Herbie Hancock, Jaco, Peter Erskine, all the people at the time, and still are, the greats of the greats. So someone actually believed in me, so it can happen, everybody, no matter what you want to do. Believed in me, gave me a bunch of money, enough to do 2 or 3 records, and just hired the best people I could, and it set my career off, and it's still going.
Randy, you said a lot of stuff right now, and you mentioned a lot of, great people and great musicians all around the world, but the music scene back in the day was totally different, the up to now, right?
Totally great. I mean, for me, one of the proudest things I ever did was to actually do music, make a living, a decent living, I gotta say, for 30 years, doing my own music and stuff like that. Can you do that today? Gosh, I really don't think so, man. Particularly doing your own music. working 5 days a week, whether it's USA or Europe, we're still making the same money we did when I was 17 years old in high school.
Yeah, so you moving to Lauderdale, right? Florida?
To Florida, yeah.
And you went to high school and everything, university and, music scene and whatever. I mean, the question, I want to give it to you like, bum, right away is like, how and why you met one of the greatest musicians in the world, like Jaco Pastorius?
Well, I like to think that all movements are divine design. I'm not smart enough or seeking to be in the right places at the right time. There's another thing that writes our story. I believe that. But anyway, I was, heavily in the music scene there, same time Jaco was. I had heard of this guy. And I was just at a club in the afternoon that he happened to be at. And I was sitting on the stage, and this weird guy approaches me.
How old you were?
17.
Wow.
17. And, this guy approaches you, and I thought I was sitting on his seat. I got up. Jaco was a different guy. For those of you that don't know the name, Jaco Pastorius, check it out sometime. Google it. It's going to blow your mind. He was a different guy back then, and why would he not always be a different guy? So anyway, I got up, and he introduced himself to me. He goes, man, I heard you at the Flying Machine, which was a great club back then. He goes, you sounded great. Why don't we get together and play? Wow. Okay, I'm in. Now, at the time, Jaco he hadn't played with Joni Mitchell, Weather Report, Herbie Hancock, all those people, John McLaughlin.
Wow.
But, the first time you hear him play one note, we're on another planet. This was another planet. So that's how I met him. Anyway.
Wow, you had a lot of a different experience with Jaco, right?
Yes. We would play at that time. It was even before his first record came out. So not only would we do and play music, have fun, but mostly sports. Play a lot of football, American football, baseball, swimming. He was very competitive. And at that time, I don't think he even had his first beer.
This is a beautiful story you just telling, because for me, Jaco is one of my heroes, and you know that, because me and Randy, we know each other since a very long time. But Randy has, a lot of stories to tell. Okay, other than Jaco, which is, a great musician, and we know everything about him. I mean, as far as we can. But then there's something, Randy, you did a lot of records, with Herbie Hancock, with Jaco, with Peter Rensky, with Toots Thielemans, with a lot of people, right? In the beginning of your career, right? Yeah, and it was your own music, right?
Yes.
It was difficult in the time to, take that people in your record. Was it different than right now? What happened that time?
I think that's a great question. Could I do that now? I don't know if I could do it now. Back then I had
a lot of energy, connection, and everything.
Cojones.
Yeah.
Cojones. I was young and didn't know any better. So I had a bunch of music I'd written, and then, man, what if I could get Herbie Hancock? That's impossible.
How you get the connection?
And that's what I'm getting to. So a buddy of mine who's another bass player in Fort Lauderdale was trying to do the same thing. So he said, hey man, Herbie is playing in Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
And I know he's staying at this hotel. So I think I actually called the hotel.
You did?
Yeah, I think I actually called the hotel and said, can you connect with Herbie Hancock?
Wow.
He actually picked up the phone. I don't think that shit happens anymore these days. I don't know. But anyways, as I say, divine design.
Divine design.
I mean, it was beyond me. Hello, hi, I'm Randy Bernsen. Hi, I'm a guitarist. He said, send me a cassette. Send me a cassette.
You did it like that?
Totally.
Really? Like straight?
Straight.
Like on the phone?
Sent him a cassette. He actually wrote me a letter. A letter is something that people write on and send.
Wow.
Years ago, it was a way of communication. Right after the pigeon. They sent the pigeons out. I'll tell you about that later. But anyway, yeah, so he said, man, love the music. I'll be in town my next concerts then. Let's record then.
Because you one of the guy that wrote and write a lot of music all the time. I know your story because I'm a guitar player and I'm following you since a lot of years, and you taught me a lot of stuff, and I'm honored and pleasure to be your friend for real. You know that.
Grazie mille, and likewise.
Because a lot of stuff. But okay, Jacopo Stories, Herbie Hancock, a lot of records. You were a teacher on the Miami University and a lot of stuff. But at some point, something happened. At some point, something happened because I love your records. But at some point, you had a chance. Let me tell you this: you had a chance to play one of the biggest artist, musician in the world, Joe Zawinul. Wow. How it happens and how it was and how it was difficult to go with. Randy's drinking something to Fico fellas right now.
Let's talk about that on episode 2. No, it's for those that know or are familiar with that music. I wish everybody was. That era of music was a very special time of music.
In that time.
It was a very, original, and everybody was feeding off each other. It was great. And so even before I met Jaco, I had heard of Weather Report. And, Weather Report was an influence on Jaco before he joined them.
Weather Report was an influence to everybody in the world.
Everybody, So Jaco played with Weather Report. I think I met Joe Zawinul and Wayne Shorter once when Jaco was playing, a very short thing. Another buddy of mine one of the great guitar players of our time now, Scott Henderson, that lived in West Palm Beach. He used to come in here and play all the time with the fuzzy hair out to here,
I love Scott.
Scott is the baddest. So I would be in touch with Scott, and Scott said, man, I might be leaving the gig. He was playing with Joe Zawinul at the time.
He recorded like 2 albums with Joe, right?
I think he recorded 2 albums
with Joe. It was like
with
for a few years on the road with Joe.
Yeah. And a good buddy of mine who was also from Miami, Robert Thomas Jr., the percussion player, he had been with the original Weather Report and was playing with the Zawinul Syndicate now. So we were always in touch. And I guess Scott and Bobby talked. And I remember one gig that the Zawinul Syndicate did in Fort Lauderdale. And I went to the gig, Scott was playing, and I got to meet and hang with Joe. And I know it was one of those times when you really hit it off. Do you hear what I'm saying? You're not just sitting in the back like this waiting. No, you're running the show.
I'm a musician, and when he talks about this and he's telling stories about this, for me it's like a dream, because Joe Zawinul, Scott Henderson, Bobby Thomas Jr., and all of those people, it's a great hero for me, man, like you. I mean, it's a great storytelling.
True, it's a true story,
I know.
So we hit it off, and then Scott leaves, and then Joe calls.
He calls you?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah.
What he said?
You ready to play? So what, cards? You know what I mean? What are we talking about? So Scott sent me some music. The first show was in Holland. I'll never forget this.
So Scott was very kind with you. He sent
Scott
you the
was
music
very kind.
and everything.
He sent me some of the music. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And Bobby Thomas. So between everything, just kind of happened that it was time that Scott would leave, that I would go. I would do the gig. So there was no interviews. It's just show up to the gig.
Yeah. Wow.
So I show up to the gig in Holland, in Maastricht,
It was the first gig?
First gig in Holland. And there was supposed to be like
Remember where?
In Maastricht.
Oh.
Right, which was the North Sea Jazz Festival. You ever hear of that? It's like one of the biggest jazz festivals in the world. And it's in the summertime, but in Maastricht, they tried for the first time a winter concert. So Joe was going to play there, so we played there. So I show up, and the 4-hour rehearsal ended up to be 3 hours of Joe fighting with the drummer.
Wow. Who was the drummer at that time?
Baker, Mike Baker.
Wow.
God bless him, who's passed away now. He lived in Italy, but
He used to work with Georgia in Italy
yeah,
and arrange a lot of music for Georgia.
is that right?
Yeah, the Italian singer.
Such
yeah.
a talent. He's such a
He
talent.
passed out. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
wow.
kind of cancer.
Wow.
So, anyways, our rehearsal, the only rehearsal before a concert with Joe Zawinul.
No, okay.
3 hours, him and the drummer fighting. This is right, this is wrong. So I had 1 hour to play everything
You
as
had
best
1
as I
hour.
could. Yeah, to rehearse the show.
Wow. Remember, guys,
I can't believe it.
Randy Bernsen is one of the greatest guitar player in the world. A lot of, as a guitar player, I love a lot of guitar players like Scott Anderson, Jimmy Page, Richie Blackmore, Jimi Hendrix, whatever, Alan Allsworth. Randy Bernsen is one of, in that crew, all right? You almost 70 years old, right, man?
Oh, not yet. Maybe in about
in a few
10 days.
In a few days.
Right.
Yeah, but that
Yes.
was a very nice experience. But I would like to know, because I think everybody wants to know, how you felt the first time you were on stage with Zawinul Syndicate. The first time on stage.
I'm sure I was nervous as anything.
As anything?
As anything. As anybody, as anything. But, the call to action sometimes is bigger than the nervous,
Yeah.
And I had prepared myself as best as I could. I mean, I grew up with his music. I knew what to look for.
I know you were.
What to look for. And Jocko would tell me everything about what's going on before he passed, obviously. I wish Jocko was around when I played with Joe, but that didn't happen. But I'm sure it was a nerve-wracking thing. I remember I played my guitar synthesizer, and we did a standard song, and I mean, we really did the whole concert improvised. You would think that every note would have been planned out. You would think at that level. Everything was improvised pretty much.
I like when you say in that level.
Yeah.
Joe was a nice guy, was a difficult guy.
I've always, my thoughts about Joe Zawinul was he was always the grandfather you wish that you had, or the German commandant. It was that, either or. Very
Either
rarely
or.
in between. Could be the sweetest guy in the world, or he could just be a son of a gun. I mean, he liked to fight, And I remember.
Sorry, because young people that play music, they need to know that Miles Davis and Joe Zawinul, they changed the music for the whole world a few times.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly
Like
right.
Beatles did. For the pop music, there was Miles, and there was Joe Zawinul. So you had a chance, or the lucky, or whatever you have in mind, to play with one of the biggest. That means Beatles, Miles, and Joe.
Yes, and a real quick segue to Miles on one of his pivotal records of all time was called Bitches Brew.
Wow.
And that set the careers for John McLaughlin, Chick Corea, Barry, what's his name on drums, 3 keyboard players. Well, there was 2. Chick
Like
Corea, Herbie Hancock,
Keith Jarrett.
Keith Jarrett was on that record.
Yeah.
And it was a pivotal record. Anyways, we'll talk about it later. My next big project coming up is going to be a Christmas record, actually, entitled Santa's Brew, like Bitches Brew, and I'm going to model it after Miles Davis record, which is, it's going to be some of the greatest melodies, just short, and most of it's going to be improvisation, and then back to the melodies. So that's my Miles Davis thing. Joe, can I tell a quick story?
Yep.
So the first 6 weeks.
If Concy is gonna listen to it.
Are you gonna listen to this?
Yes, I'm listening.
So the first 6 weeks of the tour was, I think with anybody, or the first tour, was always you could do no wrong. You can do no wrong.
No wrong, no wrong.
Non si
Translate?
può sbagliare.
Well, you were the best of the best because you're playing with Joe Zawinul. You know what I mean? This is how he would explain and introduce how you felt. After that 6 weeks, the honeymoon is over. Comprende?
Comprende very well, baby.
You know, so I remember one time a live show we did in France on radio and stuff, and the tensions had been building. I remember when Jocko was telling me about the looks and everybody telling me this is happening. Well, the honeymoon's over. I did a few gigs and I could feel this thing, you know, building and here at that, and it just looks like this. So I just snapped. Everyone can snap, right? Snap. So I put my guitar on my side. I walked up to Joe, and every cuss word I knew in English kind of came out of me and my guitar.
But
you know what I mean?
could not. But you could not.
Had to do it. You know, it's just snapped. And I remember I walked back to my stage where I was, and I thought about what just happened. I just cussed out one of my heroes since I was 15 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna get fired tomorrow and my career is over. Well, no. I looked back at Joe and he was like this. And he went to play and I swear I could read his lips. He goes, now I got a band.
Yeah.
Now I got a band. Talked to Mike Stern a year later at a Miles Davis concert that we did.
He's talking about Mike Stern. Was a guitar player of Miles Davis for a few years when they were like crazy, right?
Crazy. So we were doing the same concert, JVC Jazz Festival in Paris. And I said, Mike, you know.
Oh, you were talking with Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Talking with Mike. I said, Mike, you know, this is getting rough. Joe, you know, it's hot and cold.
It's way too much.
And yeah, I'm saying, you know, and he goes, man, Miles and Joe, you know, that whole era that they were about, it was a hard era. They were beating people up. They wanted the energy and the fighting. And remember, I've always heard bebop was invented because it's fast jazz, that it was invented so it would shame or would let the guys that can't play fast out, so it would leave them out. So that bebop jazz could have possibly came from a bad feeling, you know what I mean? So he says, man, don't worry about it. You've got everything from that gig you're ever gonna get. You know, that's that old jazz school mentality. You know? So the 2 years I was with Joe, I learned that after every few concerts, it was time to go to battle. And after the battle, everything was fine.
But Randy, I mean, after this, all of the story is beautiful because we're talking about the different level of music, you know?
Yeah.
Randy Bernsen right now, 2024, what do you think about music in general? What is going on right now?
Well,
in the world?
That is such a relative question because always, you know, one person likes red, one person likes blue. Who's right, who's wrong? You know what I mean? You and I and everyone has come up from a time of when there was a thing used to be called a melody. You know,
melody is very important.
Melody.
Right?
You know, different notes that you could remember and
wow,
and maybe repeat. I don't hear that a lot. One. You know what I mean? Two is I like the rhythms are out there today. I do. Some of the rap stuff, I love the rhythms.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are static. There's no movement. Life, you know, a river's got to keep, if a river's not moving, it dies. So I miss the freedom and improvisation that just not jazz does, but an era before this one was more appreciated.
So you're saying to young people, there's rhythm still,
Yeah.
But there's no melody, no improvisations,
Yeah.
no creativity
Creativity. Yeah.
on top of the rhythm. That's the
Right.
point,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, exactly. So that's
It's
what
beautiful.
I see, bro. You know.
Randy, what are you up for right now? I mean, your new albums and everything. We want to hear where we're gonna find your music, the new music and everything.
Gigging wise is pretty much down to a minimum because of time. I figure what time left on the planet, which these days you never know,
Yeah, exactly.
you know. So I figure my best time for me, well spent, is writing, composing, and producing. So I've already released two new tunes now in the past 4 months, 2024. I'm going to release a live CD, recordings we did at Tavern 213, which is a big
Wow.
part of my life.
I remember that place.
You know?
Remember?
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Those are some live recordings, so that I want to release that. I'm going to get my 2 projects that I did with MCA Records next year. They revert back to me. That'll be next year.
That's beautiful.
And the end of this year, it's going to be a big record for me.
Wow.
Believe it or not, it's going to be a Christmas record.
So what are we gonna do tonight
Tonight,
at Fico Fellas?
I would love to leave you a snippet, a bit, an appetizer, an aperitivo of my new project, Santa's Brew, is discussed, done like a Miles Davis thing.
You're gonna send to us some of your music?
Yes, you're gonna get
Yeah.
that one.
We're gonna find Randy Bernsen where? Spotify, YouTube,
Spotify,
everywhere.
YouTube,
Amazon,
everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'd like to leave that one.
There was a beautiful interview with you. As you know, I'm a guitar player and love you.
Amen.
And I have a
Likewise.
great respect of you. I learned a lot of stuff from you because I came to Florida and I was watching you playing. So I stole a little bit, with respect,
Well, I
And
know I stole
creativity.
it from somewhere too. So
I know that well.
We're all thieves.
So we have Consuelo, the boss of Fico Fellas, tonight with us. We have Randy Bernsen. We're gonna have aperitivo now at Fico Fellas. We're gonna have live music every Wednesday night for the whole summer. We're gonna have a DJ set every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. It's a beautiful place. We're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna stay with us tonight,
Bro,
right?
It's great. I'm coming back.
Tomorrow you're gonna be with us, right?
I believe so.
Maybe we're gonna have a jam. Maybe
Jam session, jam and jelly.
Jam.
Hoorah.
Tomorrow night we're gonna have Julia Barrio with the Fico Fellas band. We're gonna say bye to Fico Fellas. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here, and I'm very happy to see you again.
Thanks, brother, man. Love you, bro. Grazie mille.
Consi,
Kansi. Thank you, baby.
Thank you,
Thank you
Randy.
for having
Thank
them here.
thank you very much. I know you have a lot of stories to tell, but next time we have Randy Bernsen live on Fico Fellas on the beach tonight.